Hey you guys, this is Stephanie Richardson here. A friend of mine just shared a question with me. Thank you, Heather Nichols. And the question was, if consciousness and creation were my boss, what would I choose? What would I do? And I asked myself that question. It was a question Simone Milasas had asked her. And when she shared the question with me, I asked myself, well, what would I do? If consciousness and creation were my boss, what would I choose? What would I do? And when you ask a question of yourself, the tart like that, one that doesn't actually have an answer, which is actually a really good question. That's how you know it really is a question. It doesn't have an answer. It just has a question, which means you keep asking it and it keeps feeding you new information. It keeps expanding your universe. So when I began asking my question, I sat with it and allowed for that question to change things. What do I mean by that? Well, the first part of the question, if consciousness, and we can just stop there for a second, consciousness includes everything, judges nothing, and the universe is ever expanding. Okay, so if ever expanding, including everything, judging nothing was my boss, whoa, okay, and then add in creation. And what is creation? Creation doesn't have a definition, but it is a generative energy that is the creative force, or the creative, the creative flow of energy that actually adds to the creation, the moment forward moving energy that allows for new things to exist, right? Creation actually creates new things, new ideas, just creates. It's part of the forward-moving generative expansion of the universe. All right, great. So if the generative forward-moving energies of the creation of the universe and including everything, judging nothing, ever-expanding energy of possibility, if those two things were my boss, what would I do? What would I choose? Now, I'm going to go back to that beginning part, right? So you go, if they were my boss, well, that leads me to another question, as questions do. And that question is, wow, who have I made my boss? Who or what have I actually made my boss up until now? And it began to give me information about if I've made another person my boss, I have to look at everything through their point of view to see what I'll create. Like, oh, what if I was looking from your point of view, what would be valuable? If I was looking from your point of view, what would I know? If I was looking for your point of view, what would I choose? If I was looking from your point of view, what would I do? And so that would that lead to me bringing more of the gifts, talents, and abilities that I have to the world? If you make somebody else your boss, does that lead you to have more of your gifts, talents, and abilities, your own unique point of view that you bring to projects? Or would you instead try to align, try to agree with the person who's supposed to be your boss so that you can create something that works for them? So that's if it's a person. And then I was like, well, what other ideas or values have I made my boss that I haven't even looked at? So, for instance, just as an example, if you make busyness your boss, if that's a value that you have, is staying busy or working hard, then you make that your boss. And so then everything goes through that filter. So if I was going to be busy and if I was going to work really hard, what would I choose? So you see that everything that goes through that filter adds that as one of the things that you have to create. Is that including everything, judging nothing? And is that an ever-expanding generative energy? Well, no, busyness and working hard are not an ever-expanding generative energy that includes everything and judges nothing. It judges what counts as working hard. It judges what's worth doing. It judges what's not worth doing. It judges what sloth looks like. It judges ease. It has all sorts of stuff already built into it. So I keep getting messages and things. So if that's your boss, then you have to include, all the judgments, all the whatever. If, on the other hand, and this is where the question of, if creation and consciousness were your boss, what would you do and choose? All of a sudden, ease is possible, joy is possible, glory is possible, enjoying your day is possible, and also being a person who chooses to contribute to the generative, creative, ever-expanding motion of any project you contribute to. Whoa! If that's who's my boss, what would I be able to contribute to? And does that include all of my gifts, talents, and abilities and everything that I'm aware of? Absolutely. Do those other elements or other bosses include everything that I'm aware of and everything I can contribute to? No. So this was a really cool question. Thank you, Simone. Thank you, Heather, for sharing. And thank you for, all to and for all my friends who are exploring asking questions and exploring this consciousness business. The using the tools of consciousness and awareness and vulnerability in everyday work, and being willing to contribute to me having more of that in my life too. So thank you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.